Well, hello, and welcome back. I'm AJ O'Neill. We are live coding once again, of course, and this time what we're working on is the ye old Auth project. So it's been a hot minute since we've worked on this. When was the last video? December 8th, I think it was. So it's been a while, but I haven't given up. We've actually been using this in production. It's just, it got to a point where it's kind of stable. And the other day I needed to make a change and I just got inspired again that it's time to work on it. So what we're going to do is right now, everything is encapsulated under this app.use/API/authn, and it looks cute. It makes for those great little one-liner examples, but the problem is that it obscures where all of the routing is. And so you could either have a one-time copy and paste, or you could have this and then have to look up documentation to figure out what routes do what. And so I'm going to invert control so that the routing is at the top layer. And there's a couple of other things like this where another thing I'm changing is that instead of having Auth 3000, which by the way, I'm renaming to libauth.js. So you can see up here, it's now libauth.js. I'm going to have it so that instead of it handling all of the responses for you, again, it's some copy and paste where it handles the responses in the same way. But if you need to call res.json and give some different values than what are being given by default, that there's an easy way to do that. So I'm going to try to find that balance. That's what this is all about. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining in. So feel free to ask questions. You can heckle and troll me a little bit. We can go a little bit off topic. We're just hanging out. This isn't even commissioned or paid work or anything. So we're just hanging out, and I've got this as my, kind of my prompt of what we're working on. It's JavaScript, Node.js. And before we get started, of course, well, not of course, because I've been switching to decaf herbal tea for a little bit, but Saturday, Mr. Mountain Dew's back in the ring. So let's pop top, my friends, and have a quick word from our not a sponsor. Let's open focus. Now I even have half left. That's great. All right. By the way, for those of you joining in, I'd love to know if you're newcomers, if you're returning visitors, what it is that brings you here today. And of course, just drop questions, comments, whatever. Like I said, we can do this whatever way we want to do it. We are just hanging out today. So let me go ahead and get on over here. And this might be kind of boring too. So, questions and comments might break up the monotony. We shall see. I also at some point want to re-rant on Remix because I started that accidentally yesterday, and I found the video that I was talking about. Oh, newcomer to this gem of a project. Elon, it's so good to see you. Everybody on the stream, please welcome Elon. Yeah, you didn't know I was friends with Elon Musk, but this is him. And if you want, he'll give you an address. If you send him some monies, he'll send you back double within, 24 hours or something like that? He is definitely, South African prince. Huh? Okay, so little joke I've got with Akshat here. Will this be suitable to host on AWS? Well, that depends on how you choose to host it, because AWS kind of tends to want you to use their proprietary mechanisms, and they tend to try to get you to do things that are non-compatible with other systems. So in as much as this will work on any hosting service, yes, this will work just fine on AWS. But in terms of, no, we're not doing anything special to break this for other systems to make it explicitly only compatible with niche AWS services. But if there's anything that you want to know specifically about how to get this working on AWS, feel free to ask. But I really don't like AWS because it's expensive, it's complicated, and they have their own special way of doing everything to kind of provide that vendor lock-in so that once you start using them, it's really difficult to stop using them and you're stuck with those expensive bills. You know, it's kind of weird. Just like the Verizon "Can You Hear Me Now" commercial, if you remember back from the 90s, they decreased call quality, introduced compression, and then ran an advertising campaign that you could hear them better than any other network. Likewise, AWS has the most expensive, most complicated stuff, and their advertising campaign is only pay for what you use. And when you use nothing, then yeah. But DigitalOcean is what I use. I've got an affiliate link in the description on YouTube that will give you $100 or 60 days free. And then it's just $5 a month if you use their standard normal tier. And that's a predictable cost. You know, if you have 10,000 users, 100,000 users, it's still just $5 a month. So I really don't like AWS. Yeah, somebody told me the other day that they're using their service on Lambdas. They said, oh yeah, it's really cheap. We only have to pay $5 per route. And I said, well, that's interesting because I pay $5 and I have hundreds of routes. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. So a lot of this is just going to be getting started again because I don't even remember where I'm at. Let's see what's here. Lib, util, lib, session. I think most of the stuff is in session. I've got some helper utils here. Okay, that makes sense. So let's go into lib session. And also, I'm going to link to Creeds of Craftsmanship real quick. So there we go. There's a creedsofcraftsmanship.com link. There's a talk by Matt Ryer that discusses part of what I'm working on in terms of some of the advantages of having routing exposed in a single location rather than having sub apps and whatnot. That talk on creedsofcraftsmanship.com is, what is it, Matt Ryer? Here it is. How I write HTTP services after 8 years. Now he's talking about Go, but you can apply these paradigms to anything. So sorry, I switched too quickly. It's this one right here, if you want to watch that talk. Cool, I'll look into DigitalOcean. For years, I wanted to bring my own home automation into the cloud. Yeah, DigitalOcean would be great for that because you've got a fixed price, $5 a month. And yeah, for something like home automation, where it's just your home, maybe you could use Amazon and pay literally $0 a month. But then, you know, when you start to scale, then all of a sudden you get hit with big fees because it's 10 to 100 to 1,000 times more expensive than just having a single host. Now, with all of that negativity, I need to bring in some positivity. Well, I don't need to, but I will because it's true. There is a use case for Lambdas where you need to scale lots and lots of services, or lots of batch jobs. If you need to do 1,000 batch jobs and you need to get them done in about 2 seconds, that's a time where Lambdas really makes sense if you do batch jobs. But if you're just looking at load and you're saying, oh yeah, we might have a little bit more load, you're going to spend a lot less money if you just double your capacity on a traditional VPS for the period of the load. You know, say Christmas is coming, you just pay twice as much for servers and you're going to turn out the better. A few years ago, I heard about there was some startup, no, it was a nonprofit, built an app on Firebase, and it ended up costing them $20,000. And then they contacted Firebase and they got the costs taken away. But, you know, they thought, oh yeah, we had 100,000 visitors and our costs went up to $100,000. And I thought, well, it could have literally been $5. And you wouldn't have even had to contact them and argue about it. Whenever you're paying per CPU cycle or you're paying per request or anything like that, yeah, it sounds really great when you have 0 requests and 0 CPU cycles. But ideally, you want your application to get traffic, at which point paying $5 a month is obviously infinitely cheaper than paying per request. Let's see. I'm just going through here. I'm trying to find out where my routes were. Oh, and I don't want to do this. Hold on. I'm going to move this out of here. Let me move this up to the top. Up to the top. Like we never stop. There's a lot of conventions that I've changed about how I program since I did this. Oh, and this is going to be sync, so I should make this one sync. Because I often require read file. Oh, I'm not going to have this in here eventually. This is actually going to go away. That's okay. All of that's loaded into memory when Node loads anyway. Okay, where the heck are my handlers? They're down here somewhere. And I'm just going to pull them out so that, again, the goal is to make the documentation instead of just having /API/authn, it's going to be 5 or 6 routes here in sequence that you copy and paste. So it's going to look worse, but it's going to be easier as you go back and continue to edit your application. So Google Cloud, AWS, all of the big cloud providers, Azure, they all pretty much do the same thing. I don't really like any of them. I have heard that Google Cloud is the better if you're going to go that route, but you know, I just, the whole idea that you're going to make an application proprietary to a particular service seems weird to me. You're gonna pay more to have it be proprietary, and you're gonna pay more to get vendor lock-in. Vendor lock-in is the feature that you get. Okay, so I'm going down here, going down here, going down here. Oh, I see what I'm doing there. So I do have some lazy loading, which probably isn't worth it. So for example, I don't even load magic link unless in your configuration you've specified magic link, but here we are. Here's all of these right here. So what could I do to make this a little bit better? Because essentially, I need to return this somehow, the magic link routes. I think what I might do is expose a function for this. Let's see. By challenge, ops by challenge. By challenge. Ah, I see what I'm doing here. So this actually is a function that I'm calling. Okay. Right. Gosh, I got to go back to some code. I'm going to go into some work code actually to see how I'm using it at work, because I need to mirror that with how I'm using it here. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. It's a nice time that Node.js is accepted on the server side. Corn Julio. Oh, nice little 90s reference there. What do you mean accepted on the server side? That it's just de facto? That it's, you know, anywhere you go, it's going to be there? Yeah, I think that Node is a good... I think that the tooling around Node is absolutely horrendously terrible, but I think that the opportunity that it provides is similar to Go. Go is definitely better, but Node isn't much worse in terms of the capabilities of the language. And in fact, in some ways, Node is better because Node is designed explicitly for horizontal scaling. Node just doesn't really do vertical scaling at all. And Go is likewise designed for horizontal scaling with a little bit of vertical scaling, but mostly horizontal scaling is, but the way that architecture has gone, it ends up just being cheaper to do horizontal scaling in many cases. Not all, but many cases, horizontal scaling is cheaper and a little bit more manageable and a little bit more reliable. So both Go and Node take advantage of, we want to optimize for multiple instances running across multiple computers as opposed to one instance running faster on a single computer. Whereas that's, you know, if you've been on the channel a while, you hear me say this, that's kind of more Rust's area. Okay, so here, this is an application where I'm actually using Auth 3000. So here we are. I just want to take a look at the way that I've got it set up. Okay, so what should happen is this should return some routes, I think is what should happen. So this should be maybe let challenge routes equals auth3000.challenge. We're going to change that to libauth. So yeah, I think right here is where that should be happening. I guess just right here. It should be, we should be returning those routes right here rather than baking them in. So let me go find again, where did I have the, because we'll just start with that one and we'll move around a little bit and see where we get. Well, it's not frowned upon anymore. So from my experience, it was never frowned upon. So I was in college when Node.js came out. I learned about it at a Ruby meetup and I started using it and I dropped everything else except for Go because I was learning a little Python. I was learning a little Ruby. I was learning some of what they were teaching in school, Java, and the benefits of Node from watching computer science talks. Because while I was at college, what I would do is I would listen to Google Tech Talks on my way in between classes. And so I had I think it was my iPod. I don't know exactly how I had it all working, but I think I downloaded the talks kind of in podcast form, probably using some YouTube downloader or something. I don't remember exactly how I did it, but I would have them on my iPod. And so, as I was taking a 20-minute walk, maybe a 10 or 15-minute walk to campus, and then maybe a 10 or 15-minute walk between classes from one side of the campus to the other side of the campus, I'd be listening to these talks. And so just learning about all the different patterns for servers and stuff. And it was just clear to me that Node was a good option. And it was clear to me that Go was a better option. But again, you have to deal with the perception is reality problem. So it doesn't matter how good it is. It matters how good people believe it is. And that was kind of the problem. Okay, so here, yeah, we're not going to apply the routes. I'm trying to think about what's the best way to do this. I think we just got to go cold turkey on it. So this is going to be a major breaking change to Auth3000, which is good because we're renaming it to libauth anyway. So I don't think I'm going to publish another version that is Auth3000. And that's the appropriate thing to do when you're changing a paradigm of how something works. Auth3000 was the temporary name while I figured out what it was I was trying to do. And now that I kind of have a better idea of what I'm trying to do, there's the by challenge is true. Let's see. I think there's a couple things we might have to do here. Yeah, we might have to make some major re-architecture changes. But I don't need to have this. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take it back. I'm going to take it back for a second. This whole bit here does need to be moved. But I think what we can do in this case, yeah, I think I know what we can do here. What we can do is we still might want to do this. I might want to have some backwards compatibility. So we might leave one more version of Auth3000 before we completely clean things up. Hey, what's going on? Let me see. Dimitri Maximo. Hey, welcome to the channel. But also to that point of Node.js, I worked at small companies because I was coming straight out of college. I dropped out of college to join in on a startup. Unfortunately, I didn't get any equity. That was sad. But the company never went public anyway. So, tomato, potato, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. All right, so let's see. What am I doing? I'm trying to place in here, basically, where is this? There's a guard here, kind of. Oh, wait, did I get rid of the guard? If ops by challenge. If not ops verifier, if function. So I guess this only gets called once anyway. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to move this up to the top. And we're going to do, this is going to be A3K, whoops. dot challenge routes is what we're going to rename all these to. So I'm going to put this in my copy buffer as, so I'm going to do quote AY, so put it in my A buffer, because A, now I do quote AP to paste. I'm going to do that a couple times. Actually, yeah, quote AP. I could have just done a find and replace on this, but whatever, I'm already here. I'm already pretty much done, so. Okay, so that's all good then. That's what's going to need to get copied to the README. So I think I'm going to copy this into the README. I should probably update the README first, actually. Well, you know, how is this going to get used? Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put in all of this. I'm going to get rid of this one. I'm going to get rid of this one. And we're going to put the API auth in front of it all. So I'm just going to use my default buffer to copy and then paste. I need to put the bang vim in my title so people know I'm a vimmer. We don't need this one anymore, not for this bit. So order status finalize exchange. And then what we would do here would be, let's see. Okay, so this one, I'm going to move that down. Actually, yeah, let's just say, I'm going to move this down until we entirely eliminate it. And keep these in orders. Let challenge routes equals. By the way, let me know if you need to be able to see better or anything like that. Whoops. Let me see if I can whip this up. There we go. Get a little bit more space on there. Okay. All right, so there we are with that. And then we're just going to do the challenge routes here. Cool. And then I do need to figure out there needs to be a way for this to know what routes it's being attached to. Because these routes may depend on each other to some degree, and that's something that I don't like about the inversion of control, is that since the routes depend on each other, I'm going to have to duplicate some of this information here, or we have to have some sort of weird introspection going on. So I don't really like that pattern, but I don't know how to get around it. Maybe it will emerge as we continue what a better way to go about this would be. We're going to leave that in place, and we're going to bring this down to a 3K equals, there we go. So this should return the routes. Okay. And I've made a few mistakes here with the API on this. I'll figure it out as we go. All right, but there's challenge. So challenge is in there now. All right, here's credentials. So credentials is the one that most people are familiar with. That's username and password. It's the worst one. It's the least secure. With browser plugins being native for username and password, it's certainly getting better. But yeah. Oh, interesting. Interesting. And there may be another option for this. And that option may be that we get really, really, really close, or we use query parameters or something. for the routes. So maybe what this will end up being is rather than it being auth challenge order, status, finalize, exchange, some of this we can kind of determine from the method, right? So if it's a post, we know that's a create. If it's a get, we know that's a check. We could change this to be, say, a put or a patch, maybe. Or, maybe delete. I don't know. That seems kind of weird, but we could change the method on these, and then we, between finalize and exchange, you can kind of tell the difference between the two based on what the body is. So this is for a token. So if you want to get a token, an email, or a code, you're going to order one of those. You're going to request one. Then you're going to be able to check the status on it. Then you're going to be able to submit the code in order to get the login token. And there's two ways you can do that. On the origin device, which is what the exchange is for, or on the destination device, which is what the finalize is for. But again, we can kind of tell which one was intended from the data. So we might just nix all these endings and just have it so that using the challenge middleware is only, I don't know, we do a use at this level like that, and then just use it rather than, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what the best way to go about it is, but that's kind of part of this. We'll be using something like ngrok today. Probably not. I typically like to just develop on a server. I don't like to put, it's just simple, but I do have a service that I created that you may be interested in, which is telebit.io, which was made for home automation stuff. So that's actually why I created this, was a project that I was working on with Raspberry Pis. So if you want to check out telebit.io, this is built in Node. I actually have a version that's built in Go that I'm going to deploy at some point this year and give people the option to pay for additional features. But it's kind of a similar idea to ngrok. It just comes from a different angle. It comes from the I'm building something for people to put devices in their home angle, with the, we can use this to develop as more of a fringe benefit than a core value. So that might be right up your alley. Okay, so where was that? I was looking at credentials. All right, and I want to return by credentials. And then I probably want to put this in two places. One is probably right where, did I have a by credentials? No, did I have a by challenge? What was by challenge? If ops by challenge, and then let's see, if ops by credentials, I'm going to put this in here, A3K underscore credential routes. Let's call it that. So I'll do that. Whoops. Let me see. Dang it. Return routes. Yeah, so this one was actually, I meant to do this. Challenge routes. I need to go back to, I think I've got a demo for this authentication up somewhere. Right now I'm just working on refactoring, but I think we will get to a point where we test it out. Okay, so we got challenge routes here. And then what is this complaining about? It doesn't like that, probably because of the way I've got the TypeScript stuff set up. That's okay. I have TypeScript checking enabled for type linting. All right. So this is credential routes by credentials. There we go. That's okay that it's complaining. I think I can fix that though. Let me see. Do I have something types.js? Is this where it is? And then here, I've got a bunch of my types defined. Let's see. Let me go back a step and see what type is A3K? Oops. A3K is of type what? I don't specify. That's weird. Maybe I have it in the return value. Do I have that returns? No, I don't. Huh, that's weird. I would have thought that I'd specify that. Well, here's a way that we can get around it. We can do challenge routes equals object, and we can do credential routes equals function rec res next. Whoops, I put an equals there where I should have put a colon. We can just make the type checker a little bit happier by doing this, essentially. Okay. Yeah. What I should do, though, is... By the way, we're also going to ditch @root async router. Just because I don't want to have an extra dependency if we don't need it. And this is simple enough, the routing is simple enough that we can just create the promise and return it with inside the route. Yeah, because I just like to be as dependency free as possible. And I think that we can be more dependency free on that particular regard. Whoops. Wait, where was this at? At param. Let's see. Type. There we go. That's what I wanted. So we can tell this is a handler, is its type. Now it'll stop complaining. There we go. I might even be able to do this. See if it'll, yeah, it seems to be all right with that, actually. Cool. So that gets rid of just some complaints. Okay, so what do we need to do next? We've got credentials and challenges out of the way. There are several different strategies. We need to get the refresh strategy. We need to get the login. Let's see where else we have app.get. Nope, app.post. Okay. Exchange claims, exchange, and then refresh claims, and then logout. So these we need to return all of these from other methods. So we have exchange, and then we've got logout there. So logout. Yeah. So I think right here we can just, I don't know where logout was, where it was defined, but we can just have a3k dot logout routes is logout and then return logout. I think it's fine. Oh, and it's going to complain about that, of course. And we can do the same thing with the exchange. Ops.logout. Okay. Order verification, check status, redeem code, exchange receipt. Yeah, that one's kind of hard to pull out, unfortunately, but it's okay. I'm going to copy these real quick. And I'm going to take them over to somewheres. Yeah, it's a bright day, but it's not bright enough. I want more light. Does anybody else want more light? Okay. Beep, 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 beep. So I'm going to go back to the challenge routes. What was I going to do? Oh, this is what I was going to do. I was going to take this, and I was just going to say, order verification. I'm just doing this for type hinting. So it's kind of dumb to do this way because I am literally just defining things so that they can have types on them, and that's the only reason. And tomato, potato, And again, I don't use TypeScript, but I like to have type information. I think type information is great. I think it'd be awesome if we had better tooling in JavaScript. There's no reason that we can't have good type tooling in JavaScript. And the TypeScript type checker linter mabob kind of proves that. It'd be nice if it was intended for JavaScript, because the one thing that sucks about the TypeScript checker is it doesn't understand JavaScript types really well because it expects you to be using TypeScript types. But yeah, it does okay. Hey, Corn Julio, welcome to the Discord. By the way, anybody else is welcome to the Discord too. It's not very fun, but it's there if you need it. So. Okay, so we want the exchange claims. Let's see. I don't think I really want that. Strategy handler. I need to go check that one out. Okay, exchange claims. And then we can return exchange by token ID. And I guess we don't have to undo that, but we do want to put this on a3k dot underscore exchange routes, maybe. That's probably okay to do. All right, so we can't find exchange by ID token. Why not? Let's figure out where that comes from and why it's not available lower down. Exchange by ID token is right up here. This is in router. So I know why we're not doing it. Hold on. So what we need is to do, we've got, I don't know if ops by credentials is here. So let me go back up here by, what was it, challenge? So we need a by credentials. And then we're going to need by exchange and probably some other things. So by credentials. So why I was putting false, sorry, I'm jumping around a lot. Feel free to slow me down, ask me questions. I would love it to just, we have banter and chat a bit too. So, this is literally what, session 31 of this project, and it's been 4 months since we touched it, because it was in a good place and all that. So there's, obviously there's a lot here that you'd have to watch at least the first few sessions in order to get a grasp of what all the decisions are going on. But basically, for those of you that are just joining in, this authentication library handles credential, meaning user password, OIDC, things like Google login, OAuth 2, things like GitHub login, as well as magic link, the secure magic link. And so I'm going through and I'm refactoring, trying to get the routes set up in a better way. Okay. So this is going to be, what do we got here? Ops.by credentials is going to be true. And we're going to do the same thing here. I think that's kind of implicit though. Ops by login is true. And we're going to have to return something. I don't know what we're going to return. Something related to strategy handler there for sure. And then same thing here. We're going to have by refresh is equal to true. Although one thing that's weird about this is refresh and exchange can be used basically identically. So I may want to slim down the distinction between these two to be more about how you use them than rather than what their route is. So we don't know what that's going to be. And then this one, it looks like we do know that it's going to be exchange by token. Just not sure where exchange by token goes. And then, you know, we're going to have similar things. We're going to expose this Auth 3000 routing in other places as well. We also need to have by logout. And then we're going to have this Auth 2. So yeah, this is going to get a little bit messy, and then we'll clean it up. Just the nature of the beast. So we're going to have by login, by exchange, by refresh. I don't know that by is even the right thing here. It should be not by, but for. By login should be for login, I suppose. And then same thing with by exchange should be for exchange, because these routes are actually talking about the JWT, the token, the authentication token. Whereas the ones that are labeled by are talking about the strategy for getting the token, and the ones that are for, are different in that regard. So let's do for login, all that, for log out. Oh, and we need to change by refresh here. Refresh. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Let's see, exchange claims. Yeah, pull all of these up so that the boilerplate is more clear. That's what we're doing right now. I think it's ops.for exchange would be the appropriate thing here. And then again, ops.for refresh. And then we want some version of logout no matter what. Yes, the key fetch does not point to the correct GitHub. That's probably right. Sorry about that. I was on this kick of self-hosting, and there end up being some problems with that. My ideal world would be a world where we have protocols like email that dominate how the internet works. Shared protocols that are open protocols that anybody can integrate with. We are very much living in the age of a closed source internet, whereas when the internet started, it was very open source, open protocol. And so Git being an open protocol is one of the early internet technologies. It makes sense that you should just be able to host your Git anywhere. But yeah, I ended up moving some things around. I'm going to get keyfetch back on GitHub. I think it actually already is. I just haven't updated the package JSON. But one day I'll clean those things up. Right now, they work. It's mostly people that use my packages. My higher layer packages are the ones that use keyfetch. There may be a lot of people that use keyfetch directly, but I'm not sure about it. So I'm not too concerned. Yes, it is kind of stupid and annoying that it's not the right repository, but it's just one of the 100 million paper cuts I've created for myself that I need to go fix at some point. Okay, so exchange by ID token. And maybe this just needs to move the whole thing. Yeah, maybe this whole thing just moves exchange by ID token. Maybe this becomes A3K dot exchange routes. And then maybe I go deal with for exchange, and maybe I just set this up right here. It's hard to say how this one should work. Because this one should kind of already exist, and if it doesn't exist, it needs to be made. This auth method is totally normal behavior, isn't it? There will be a passwordless reconnection later on. Corn Julio, why don't you tell me a little bit more what your background is and what it is you're looking to learn? Because the question to me it's not really clear. If we're talking about, are you saying that basic authentication? This is not basic authentication. We're not doing basic authentication with this. Although we should be able to do that as well. But we're not doing basic authentication, the standard basic authentication. Okay, let me see. How should I do this? Strategy handler. So I think this is where something weird happens here. Okay. Yeah, so this is a lot of this is backwards compatibility. So refresh claims, exchange claims. So I think what needs to happen is this. We're going to say exchange by ID token again. I'm building this kind of for backwards compatibility for the moment so that I can kind of try it out and see how things go. So we're going to say A3K dot exchange routes. So let's say if not Auth 3000 exchange routes, then I guess we don't wrap this in. Do we wrap this or do we not wrap this? I think this is one of those ones where, well, this should work. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Exchange by ID token. Remember that. Remember that with me. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say we're going to get rid of the exchange by ID token entirely. We're going to replace that with exchange routes. And that's going to go here. Oh, what did I do? What? I have an oopsie here somewhere. Oh, apparently I hit a button. I hit a button that deleted a bunch of stuff that I didn't intend. Okay, so again, let's go back to the challenge routes. I'm going to go back there real quick where these were originally defined. And then we're going to have, similarly, we're going to have exchange routes. We got credential routes. We're going to have refresh routes. Just going to get all this stuff teed up. And probably need a logout route as well. Which logout needs to happen regardless of what the person does. That's what's going to delete cookies and that kind of thing. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. I'm AJ. This is session 31 of this project, and I haven't worked on it in 4 months. This is a JS authentication project, kind of something intended to be like somewhere, the goal is somewhere between Passport.js and Auth0, but very minimal on the abstraction. That's the part that's really bugs me. I tried to use Passport once, and I needed to change an implementation detail, and I spent a whole weekend doing it, and it didn't work out well in the end. Okay, so let's see where logout is. Where's logout defined? Where we actually create that? We create that right here. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to say if not a3k dot logout routes, then we're going to do a3k dot logout, and then we're going to do a3k dot logout routes. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. Okay, logouts. And we're just going to have a no op there. It's not actually going to do anything. All right, so Cornelio's, or Julio, is messaging on Discord. Self-taught nerd, 10 finished and 90 unfinished little projects. Well, congratulations to you for finishing 10 projects. That's awesome. Over about 20 years. I was kind of afraid of anything network related. Wrote an app, which I use at work, which is very helpful. I cannot share with my coworkers. Turning it into a progressive web app would solve a few problems. Being able to share it and not pass an APK around. Oh, okay, so it's a mobile app. And security, only real employees allowed to use it, including me being able to remove somebody from the list when he quits. Very ambitious thing, I admit. So actually, one of the people who does use Auth 3000 currently, my buddy Ryan, this is exactly what he uses it for. So I don't know if we could get a demo from him that could help you, but so he uses the Google Auth with this. And I have a blog post on Google Auth on the root company. So if we go to the rootcompany.com, go to the blog here, not jobs, blog, and then look for Google. And then you'll see how to add Google login. Now, this is kind of more how to do it from scratch, but the important part is what you get right here. Activate Google login for your domain. So again, this is assuming that, I don't know if your employees are using Google Workspaces, but if they are, then this right here gets you a lot of the details that you need in order to be able to use Auth 3000. So just this first section here about basically how you set up your domain, this could be very valuable to you. So that's the rootcompany.com blog, and look for the Google sign-in article. And that's what, when I need to do a Google login product, I'm always going back to this because it's really confusing the way that they have the Google sign-in set up. They're just far too enterprisey. It's not very friendly to somebody who's just trying to get up and go. So this will get you that, and then you could follow the existing Auth 3000 documentation. Like I said, we may or may not be releasing libauth within the next week or today. I don't know how far I'm going to get, but Auth 3000 currently does work. What I'm doing here is not because Auth 3000 isn't complete or isn't good. What I'm working on today is I realized that I made some design decisions that I don't like as much, and I'm going to be releasing libauth because Auth 3000 was just a temporary name anyway while I worked out the perfect authentication system. But we're going to be releasing libauth, and it's going to be a breaking API change, but I'm hoping that it'll actually be easier to understand and use than any existing system for Node. So anyway, that's kind of the goal. Let's see, what was I doing here? Okay, and then I need to go to Logout here, and we're going to be creating our Logout system. There we go. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. And then we're going to be returning. Wait, did I want to do it this way? I don't know if I wanted to do it this way. There we go. That's better. Logout routes. So each of these should be returning logout routes. Kind of the core part of what it does there. Okay. I would recommend, if you've already got the APK for Android, pay the $100 to get the developer kit or whatever it is. I don't know what Android's review process is, but I think typically it's something in the realm of $100. Pay the $100 and get the thing published if you can. Or I guess if it's only for work, then maybe that presents a problem of a kind. But, it's kind of cool to be able to say you've got an app in the App Store, or at, any App Store, no matter which App Store it is. It's just kind of a neat thing. So I'd fully support you in saying, hey, do it. Okay. There we go. We're going to have a lot of white space changes on this. Pretty much the whole file is going to be changed, and it's going to seem more significant than it really is. Okay. All right, let me think about this. Did we get challenge done? I think we did. Okay, challenge is done. Confirmed. All right, credentials. And then we have, do we have the buy challenge? Where's buy challenge at? Yeah, let's move that down there for each of these. Move this around a little bit. Make this a little nicer. We're going to get rid of that. And we're going to put this up here. Okay, that's good. All right, so let me just start from the top and kind of work my way down here. So challenge, that's magic link. Credentials, that's username, password. Login, that's actually more about the token exchange. This one has to be defined. You don't have really an option on whether or not you define it. I'm going to pass on that real quick as I continue to look down here. And then we have a for exchange. Yeah, let's have that there. And then we have the logout. Okay. And we have the for logout true. So let's go ahead and just drop that down here. That looks good to me. And then we're going to need to get the OAuth and the OIDC. So a lot of these are in a good place. Well known, that's going to be its own thing. Okay. No, the jobs I need to take down. There's some jobs listed there that, yeah, this is kind of old. I need to take these down. So both of these jobs, I believe, have been fulfilled. That one I could double check on. I know they were looking for somebody again. They asked me about a month ago because I think that the person they were working with, things didn't work out. And then this one, actually, yeah, we're kind of, well, we don't want an assistant front-end developer. We're looking for somebody that's stronger in skills now. So if you know somebody that's more of a senior level or mid to senior level and can put up with my crap, then not assistant front-end web developer, but front-end web developer is open. And I'm really more interested in people that are principled than people that I don't know. The thing is, I think that it's, I've complained about this before, but I think that finding a software engineer that wants to use React is like finding a doctor that wants to infect people with poisons. It's just, the two things don't go together. You wouldn't want to use a bunch of known bad design patterns. I don't know. Yeah. I would love to get out of React, but I don't know that we can. They'd have to be somebody that's super really good about saying, oh yeah, I can replicate this thing. And, but I would like to get our stuff over to HTML and JavaScript of some kind. Vue, for example, is of that nature mostly. So self-sovereign sign-in, you did not actually make up that term. That term has been in existence for several years, and let's see. Eventually, maybe. I created a self-sovereign library once, and there's a lot of challenges, and there's not, you end up just, let me say it this way. I need to find the problem and make sure that I'm building a solution that fits that problem, because I tried to build a solution and then found that, one, nobody has that problem, and two, it introduces a lot of complexity and loses a lot of benefits. So I think the choose your login is a better solution than for most people. If somebody wants to have a pure public key based login, yes, but you have these issues of recovery. It's not very convenient. What that really needs to be is a browser plugin. That's what it needs to be, because the way that the browser, you've got your sign in with Google or sign in with whatever, right, in your browser. In the case of Brave, you essentially get it, and maybe I could get in touch with the Brave guys to talk about this. In fact, they would probably be the perfect ones to talk about. In fact, let me go ahead and tweet at my contact over there. Any plans for a self sovereign login? I'd love to chat ideas with you sometime. So let's go ahead and do that. So Samson's the guy to reach out to about this. Also, I was in contact with the people that were doing Sovereign. That's the name of it, is SOVRIN. And they were using BLS. So I actually reached out to him about BLS stuff. Because they had WASM in the browser. Oh, bless me. But, and it, at first I was, he's all of the objections I raised, other than that it's not a standard form of encryption, it's not battle hardened, etc. He was able to, the guy that I spoke with at Sovereign, he was able to kind of, put me in a corner and say, look, everything you're looking for is solved by this, other than the having an implementation that's in JS that's not extremely heavy. So and not being super popular yet. Anyway, I want to get there, but I think that this is the main problem. You need to have a network. This goes back to the idea of what Dapply was all about, Ryan. You need to have a device that is on 24/7, and you need to be connected with other people that you trust. That needs to happen. If that happens, then the discussion around self-sovereign identity gets a lot easier. But just the idea that you're going to have, your base 2048 or BIP39 passphrase, it's working in the case of Brave. But it needs the idea either needs to be based on a home server or based on a browser plugin. And if it's based on a browser plugin, nobody's going to use it. If it's integrated into a browser, then maybe people will use it. But you also have to consider the financial incentive of having users that you have no way to verify. Again, when you're talking about Dash and you're looking at integrating payments and stuff like that, then let's say that payments, if you want to do it in the style that Dash is doing it, payments and identity need to land simultaneously in order for self-sovereign identity to work. Because If I have no way of contacting you, if there's no way of restoring your account, blah, 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 then all you are is a suck on resources, both in the terms of just average usage, as well as when something goes wrong, you're going to need the most support out of anyone, and I'm not going to want to support you. And it's going to be the hardest to figure out what the right way, if it's even possible at all, to get access to your data, because it may be just some random key, some that's derived out of this, either public key or secret passphrase or whatever it is. And then there's all the browser issues. There was another project where somebody demonstrated this. It was one of the early Node guys. And I don't remember what the name of the project was, but when I saw it, I thought, oh, this is so great. And then I tried to replicate. Well, it's not that I tried to replicate his work. It's that I was already doing something similar. This was the project I was talking about. And you get issues with JavaScript being really slow in the browser because for reasons that maybe now could be solved with service workers if you use service workers very surgically. But basically, you have a fair amount of code, and then you have to have these redirects back and forth and a hidden iframe, and now third-party cookies are disabled, and so now that won't work, because the whole idea was that you could open up an iframe, you could do your work with the key, and then you could redirect the iframe, and the portal spec hasn't landed. So authentication is it's a real mess, and we almost had a solution, but that solution, we as in the web, we almost had a good solution, but that solution relied on third-party cookies, and now we don't have it. In fact, let me visit Medium real quick, because I think that the Google login doesn't work anymore. Let's see. Let me just pick any article. I'll just pick this first one here. So yeah, it's not doing it. So you notice usually Medium bugs you pretty much immediately with this, sign in with Google, blah, 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 the little iframe pop-up that it would do. Notice how we don't have that iframe pop-up anymore because it relied on third-party cookies, and third-party cookies are, they're done. So yeah, there's just a lot of and when I started Auth 3000, that was probably my third attempt at this type of thing. Well, just before I started Auth 3000. Auth 3000 was kind of me giving up on that idea. And then, it's useful. It works. But yeah, sorry, I'm kind of talking around in circles, but there's just a lot in my head on this. And it's a deep topic. If you'd want to have lunch today, or it's already past lunch, so we can't do lunch today, maybe, and I don't know. If you wanted to, catch up over lunch about this topic and kind of work through it and provide your insight and just have a good back and forth, that might be a nice thing to do. But it's very complex. It's very difficult to find a good solution for that. My new job uses Vue, but I'm not too stoked on learning it. I like React, so maybe I'm not a software engineer after all. Ackshot, if you like React, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, this is kind of, here's the litmus test of a software engineer. Go to Creeds of Craftsmanship, right? And take a look at these things. Okay, Zen of Python, Go Proverbs, Zen of Zig. These are documents about engineering. Beautiful is better than ugly. Explicit is better than implicit. Simple is better than complex. Complex is better than complicated. Now, this is all subjective. Flat is better than nested. That's not so subjective. There's a clear definition. We understand flat versus nested. Sparse is better than dense. Again, pretty clear definition. Readability counts. So special cases aren't special enough to break the rules. Errors should never pass silently. In the face of ambiguity, refuse the temptation to guess. There should be one and preferably only one obvious way to do it. React breaks pretty much every single one of these. It favors deeply nested, shallow abstractions. It uses really weird edge cases of JavaScript to construct how things are done in ways that are completely unintuitive. The readability is absolutely horrific. Everything is nested, whether you're talking about components or whether you're talking about the HTML. It's just mixes of code and HTML and different template syntaxes and nested template syntaxes. There's 16 million ways to do everything. Well, in JavaScript in general, but that's the fault of the people that are in charge now, not the base language that still works. You know, just if the implementation is hard to explain, it's a bad idea. You know, explain the implementation of React. I don't, the top developers in React, Kelsey Dodds, for example, do not understand the implementation of React. I asked him about some things, and he just kind of hand waved them away. Right? Oh, you don't need to worry about it. Well, you kind of do. Now there is this idea of minimum complexity that cannot be abstracted away, that you must have, for example, in authentication, security, etc. Yeah, and just really shallow abstractions are just the worst. If you were you watching the session last night? You popped on the session last night, didn't you? When we were going over and there was the issue of the checkbox in React, that rather than just using an HTML checkbox, it has this checkbox component, but it's not using any of the semantic HTML for the checkbox component. So the checkbox component, which could work if they just used HTML, is just all gobbledygooky, and then you have to pass in children nodes, and it worked in the end, but it looks so stupid. Just being able to concat a string next to a link. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, getting back to this a little bit. So I do need to go figure out where my login function is. Oh, and it's strategy handler. Strategy handler. That's what we needed here, right? So where is our strategy handler? I need the strategy handler without the underscore. So I just need space in front. Where's that? Where does that thing live? Okay, here. But where's our login route? App.post. All right, well, we'll just go from top to bottom here. The login needs to be somewhere. Where the heck does the login go? We should be able to remove our refresh cookie. That'll be good. And the router will just be applying the routes rather than creating the routes. Okay, so we'll go look for refresh by cookie. A3K underscore refresh routes. And I kind of want to bring that around to bring this around here. Or refresh is true. So we're going to put this up above, and then we're going to return a3k dot underscore refresh routes. And we're going to define those right up above. So now we know what we're going to return. So let's go ahead and define this up above. And I'll go update the README, and that will help those of you that are joining. Hey, how's it going? My name's AJ. This is session 31 of this project, so we're kind of deep into it. It's been about 4 months since I touched it, so I'm struggling a little bit, just kind of getting reacquainted with the code. I'm going to go into the README in just a second, so you kind of get an overview of what I'm doing. But this is the Auth project. I just renamed it. I haven't finished renaming it yet. It's published as Auth 3000. It works. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. But I just wanted to change some of the details to make it what I really hope that it will become, which is a very easy to understand and read authentication framework. So something kind of in the vein of Passport.js, but not so much abstraction. So you have access to the request headers, you have access to how to create the response, so that it's a framework that feels more like a library and less like a framework. It doesn't feel that everything's hidden away from you, because authentication is very complex. And once you get past the basics of, okay, now I can create a user, you find, oh, I actually do want to be able to tweak this part of this, the life cycle of the token, or I want to be able to implement, say, two-factor authentication. Or there's going to be things that if actually having a relationship with your users is important to your application and be able to service them well in that session experience, then you're going to need to have something that is more flexible than what you have with a library or a framework like Passport. And so that's kind of what this is expected, or this is intended to be. And right now you can see in the README, the majority, we do some setup stuff here. So we're going to set up our OIDC with Google. We're going to set up our Auth2 with GitHub. We're going to set up a challenge response that allows for 24-hour magic link sign in. So there's a bit of this that's going on, and it's all, it feels a little bit off to me, and that we do all this setup here, and then we just call this router function, and then it sets up all the routes. But the problem is it obscures a way of the routing. And so I want to invert that control. So basically each of these returns a router, and you assign that router yourself. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to do it in a mostly backwards compatible way right now. When we ship V1, I'm going to remove all the backwards compatibility for what Auth 3000 was, and the new name, like I think I said, is libauth.js is what it's going to be published as. But there's just a few things like that where I'm trying to clean it up and make it more, really just more readable and more intuitive, so that if you're familiar with routing, I just don't want it to feel like, there's a bunch of magic. I want it to feel like, okay, if I need to change something, I can kind of intuit where to go. I don't always have to refer to the documentation every single time. So that's kind of what I'm at. So what I'm actually doing is kind of boring, but feel free to ask. You can ask me questions about Go, Rust, Node.js, Zig. We can have some conversation. It's nice to have y'all joining in, by the way. It's lovely to see everybody. But yeah, I just don't want anybody to feel that because I'm deep in this code in session 31, that you can't ask questions or, distract me. We're just coding, we're hanging out, we're having a good time. My boy Elon is here with me. He's not a software engineer, unfortunately, because he doesn't like Vue. But this, so Elon, back to your point. Elon, he hides his true identity by sometimes coming in as Akshat, but his name's actually Elon, just so we're all clear. But Vue is something that really is centered around software engineering principles. There's very minimal, and I would like to see something better than Vue, but Vue has fairly minimal abstractions. Things are fairly obvious. It's fairly easy to read. There's not too much in terms of magic. The magic is fairly explicit in terms of the way that you get you have syntax in the HTML that lets you know, oh, this is a loop or whatever. And you have a separation of concerns between your Vue logic and your controller logic, that your controller can prepare your Vue logic, and then your Vue data goes into Vue. And I think that that's generally a clean pattern. And if we were to create a new framework from scratch, which at some point I'd like to do, I don't know that you really even need Vue anymore. HTML and the DOM have come such a long way that I think we could get what we need just using the built-in primitives now. As I said in the last session, we get to the peak of success and then we throw dynamite at it and run the other way. That's what the developer community is like. Anytime something works well and there's not much to improve upon, we just have to abandon it immediately. And I think that's kind of what happened, where there was all these complaints. Oh, the DOM sucks, the DOM sucks, the DOM sucks. The people on the standard bodies actually did a decent job, which is rare. Well, basically, jQuery told them exactly what needed to be done. I mean, there was so much web development going on that It became really clear what APIs were needed in the DOM, and we got them all. And then we said, screw the DOM. We're going to go to virtual DOM. And we're going to go all this, we're going to pre-compiled templates. So, well, we actually got what we need, Anyway, let's see. Bun, I have not heard about. I can stop hurting your feelings now. What are you talking about? Elon, I'm not hurting your feelings. Well, maybe I am hurting your feelings. I'll try to stop hurting your feelings now. It's hard. Your feelings are very fragile. Has anyone ever told you how fragile you are? Maybe you need to beef up your feelings a little bit. Yeah, my fun little project is in Svelte. A lot of people said, I took a look at Svelte and I didn't hate it. It seemed, I still think that we could get closer to just what the DOM provides, but Svelte looked pretty, the to-do app demo that I saw, Svelte looked pretty sensible. It seemed the least magic-y and abstract-y. So what is Bun? Is this Bun.js? Elon? Bun, let's see. Bun.js. This is probably not what you meant, but to me, this actually looks fine. This is really easy to read, really easy to understand. So I was kind of surprised when it says, here's a better solution. This is the same thing. It looks like it just, here it's explicit and clear and easy to read. And here there's a little bit of magic to it. Not that much, but I'm assuming this is not what you meant, but that looks silly. Okay, let me see if I can get back here. Oh, by the way, Imperial, welcome. I did not give you a warm welcome. Welcome. I welcome you. We all welcome you, I think. And every once in a while, the bot posts a Discord link. If you want to join the Discord, feel free to do that. Also, if any of this, those of you watching, if you found it to be useful, entertaining, helps you fall asleep, whatever it is, consider a little thumbs up or like or sub or follow or whatever it is, wherever you are. Okay. So we have the exchange routes. So another problem with the routes that I want to try to solve in this session maybe is that we've got a lot of this res.json, for example. And I just don't know what the appropriate way to do this is, because there's this balance between boilerplate and magic. Because the less magic you have, the more boilerplate that you have. Generally, the nice thing about boilerplate, though, is you just copy and paste it once and you're done. And then if you need to go edit something, you know where to edit it. But the problem with the routes here, potentially, is that you might want to give something else back in response other than just the access token. And so I need to give people a way to do this themselves. And I don't want to make the code too complex. It's tough. The complexity has to go somewhere. Unfortunately, that's just how life is. The complexity must go somewhere. The complexity exists. There's a minimum amount of complexity that cannot be removed from any given scenario. And it has to live in a place that exists. But that's not the immediate problem, so I'm going to move on from that. But that is something that I am trying to figure out. What's the right way to just let people do this themselves and have the tools without, just have a little bit of, because the thing is you need that example that fits on one slide, right? And that's tough. It's tough to have the example that fits on a slide. When you're dealing with something like authentication, where there are a lot of components to it. There's handshakes, and something like Passport makes it easy to have something that fits on a slide until you need to configure literally anything, and then all of a sudden it's just write your own plugin from scratch and use all, and then you're not dealing with just HTTP stuff. It's fairly, that's where a lot of your knowledge should be, is in HTTP and how HTTP works and how you want to do the request response cycle. Then all of a sudden you have to have knowledge that's domain knowledge to Passport rather than domain knowledge to building web applications. So again, and this isn't really a competitor to Passport. I'm saying, I'm comparing it to Passport because it's comparable, but it's not really a competitor, because if you want to use Passport, I'm not going to convince you to use this. But that is kind of in the vein for those that have heard of Passport.js. Okay, so I'm kind of just, I got off track chatting, and now I need to go back to what was it I was doing. Oh, first of all, I need to go back to the README. Let me get back to the README here, because I did want to update more of this. So we're going to have credentials. Let me go see what was credentials. Credential routes. Bun.sh, Akshat says. Elon. Interesting. I've not heard of this. JSX TypeScript. Yeah. Okay, is this a joke? This is a joke. It's a joke. It says it's written in Zig. So maybe it's not a dev server with 60 frames per second hot module reloaded. That doesn't even make sense, right? That's not real. Those words don't even go together. Or maybe what it means by 60 FPS is that, okay, maybe that's not a joke. So this is kind of weird because they're using Comic Sans or something here. The font's just really funky. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to do that yet. Hey, Sean, you showed up in the Discord. Welcome. I'm trying to. Where do we know each other from? Is it from Twitter? Because I recognize your name, but I don't remember if it's from a meetup or if it's from Twitter. I can't place where I know your name. Let's see. All right, what I was in here because I was trying to look for by credentials, and then we had the credential routes and post session, right? So this is what I want to do. I'm just lifting this up. I'm lifting the abstraction out, and we're going to do this bit here. So I'm going to say credentials now, oops, is post session. So that makes sense. Okay, so this kind of feels nicer. Yeah, I think this is better already. Okay. So let's see. I need to figure out what I'm doing with this login bit here. That's the next thing I want to figure out, is what the heck was I doing with that login? Because that's all strategy handler, this and that. Let me look for app dot. I got the post there. That's all that. So we got the session, we got the exchange, we got the refresh. And really, by credentials, calling that session is kind of weird. That really should be called something like basic. Okay, let me check what we got here. Just a regular viewer sent an email a few months ago about a new project, but never followed up with you. Okay. Oh yeah. Now that I see your icon, I remember who you are now. Sorry, I often lose my emails. I think I did. Did I not join the rad thing? I'm just checking my email real quick. Oh, okay. I did send a email back. Okay, so you didn't follow it with me. Got it. Hey, Cornjulio, have a good night. Adios, my friend. Okay. All right, so that, yeah, I feel better about that. What was it that I'm trying to do with the strategy handler? Let me go back and check, because there's got to be a route that I was setting up specifically for, let's see, what is it that I'm not quite doing right here? I think it's because whether it's by, there's a whole bunch of different strategies that are for logging in. And I think that my issue was that this login thing is essentially, the strategy handler is essentially, no matter which one you use, this is going to need to be set up for all types of new sessions. That's what the login function was about. So let me get back up here. Login. No. Seriously? Is that it? No. Because I've got the function that's my options. That's strategy handler. I don't think it actually is options. I think it's, isn't it a function? Okay. For login true. So I don't know what I return on this one. Yeah, strategy. Yeah, so these are, that's what the login is. So whether it's a refresh or a JWT or an exchange or challenge or ODC, all of these need the strategy handler. And that's what the login is. So let me think about this for a second. How do I want this to work? I think maybe... I think maybe I just wanted to let the user define their own custom code. I think I was kind of deprecating this, actually. Yeah. Yeah, I think I decided that rather than having all this switch statement stuff, to basically say, okay, well, when you define how you're going to do credentials, yeah, so this credentials one really needs to accept a function. And I think that the same is true with basically everything else, is there may be a standard function that I want to use. Let's see here. Credentials, we need to actually check the password. And the challenge one, we're going to get back the email. So should this be generic? Because it does apply to a lot of things. It's going to apply to IDC, OAuth 2, basically everything. Pretty much. Well, let's see. Yeah, it's going to apply to just about everything. So I think maybe it is appropriate that this is abstracted out into, there is one generic, let's see. I don't know if new session is the right word, but I don't know if I want to call it login, because it's not about the challenge response process of the login. It's about the challenge response process has passed. the OIDC, the OAuth2, the magic link, the credentials, that's passed. And then the next part is, no matter how it passed, you want to be able to take some of that passing info and get the user. So maybe really what this should be called is get user. Let me go take a look at my other code here. So this right here, this is code from work. Nothing, nothing too crazy here. All right, we've got auth.login. Okay, so let's go source lib auth. Let me just take a look at how we're doing it here. I kind of want to give this a different color. Hold on, session, edit session. Can I just have it go? Okay, so we do have a little bit of a problem here. And let me copy this. Copy current settings to selected profile, use selected profile. Let me change it to, I want to change it to Dracula? To Earth Song? No? Advanced. My problem is that it's doing the automatic profile switching. And I actually don't want it to do the automatic profile switching if I'm trying to manually change the colors. But I don't know what to do about that. Because see, it's not letting me change the colors. Whoops. So yeah, I'll have to think about that later. Because session name is remote. All right, well, I'm just not gonna deal with this right now. I wanted to have these two windows in different colors so we could tell which project we're looking at more easily. But I need to set up a session, a profile. Well, maybe I will just do this real quick. So let's go to profiles, and then let's just say we're gonna do a copy of this one. Can I get a copy of this? Actions, copy, duplicate. Okay, and then let's just call this one purplish. And then I'm going to go in here under advanced. I'm going to get rid of automatic profile switching. Okay. So wait, does local? Yeah, local has automatic profile switching. And we're just going to change the colors to something that's kind of purplish. Like, I'm forgetting the name of what it is that's kind of purplish. There's ultraviolet, but I don't want that one. There's one that was just a light purple. We'll just go with toy chest. This one's greenish. So maybe we'll just call this one greenish instead. Sorry for anybody who's colorblind. It's about to get crazy up in here. Let me go session, edit session, and then go greenish. Okay, cool. No, it did automatic profile switching. Stop automatic profile switching. How do I override that? I might have to write a question on the iTerm2 mailing list about how do I override automatic profile switching, because usually I want it, but when I don't, I don't. Anyway, so here's our login function, and what are we doing? Okay, we're just getting a user here. In most of these cases, I think we're just getting a user. What is this? This one seems a little bit weird. Okay, I think I see what needs to happen here. So for the credential one, I do need to specify. I either need to specify how to check the username and password, because all the other ones except for the credential one by the time it gets there, it's already been validated. The credential one is the one where you get user information, but you have to check to see if the user is good. Okay. And what are we doing? We're setting ID claims for a long-lived token. We're resetting the cookie. And then we give back the result. We include the state. Okay. So we have this. This is one of the things that, for example, would be really difficult with Passport.js is we want to be able to say, okay, you can pass some arbitrary data in when you're starting the login action. And then when you complete the login action, you can get that data back, which could be useful, especially if you're looking at between devices in particular. But also in other scenarios, when you just need a little bit of extra information where maybe they, I don't know, sometimes to where they wanted to go next or what you're going to do next with the user. So we've got that little bit of state. Let me just show you where that was again. So there's a rec.authn. Authn is our object, and I think I'm going to change that to be libauth. Is what the default name of that is going to become. But we put that on the result along with tokens and stuff. Let me send that back. Okay. Oh. I'm going to have to use my thinking cap here. And attack my hair. Got all poofy. Need a haircut. You know, it's only been 2 hours, but I think that I might need to take a break, go for a walk, and kind of let some of the stuff I'm thinking through settle. And that definitely needs to be lifted out. Should not have global variables inside of a library. Poor form, AJ. Poor form. Oh, wait. No, this was not the library. This was libauth. Okay, this is the work code. But I think I might have something like that in the library too. Yeah. So, for example, here we have a send email template. And I think we use something from the state in there, don't we? No, that state, if we have a new email. Oh, yeah, we've got some custom logic around if the user wants to switch their email address, we have them go through the sign-in process, but instead of sending them the click here to log in email, we send them the click here to verify you wanted to change your email. And then we use the state that we pass in when we're initiating that process to be able to do extra logic that's specific to that that action. So again, I'm just kind of torn between where this should live. I'm starting to think that the amount of shared code doesn't warrant, sorry, I'm going to go back to here. The amount of shared code doesn't warrant having this function altogether because there's just so little shared code. And that it would be better to say, I don't know what we'd call it, because one of the reasons I moved it out here is I don't know what to call this function, so I just decided, won't call it anything. We'll call the login function, and that'll be the first parameter. But maybe the same thing. Maybe it'd be first parameter and then options. So maybe it'd be login, or I can't. But then again, I don't know. Don't know what we'd call it. Okay. But I lifted out credential. Let me see what else I can lift out that we've already got. I think I can lift out exchange. So do we have exchange in this example? I don't think we do. I can lift out OIDC. That one's not hard to lift out. So let me go ahead and see what I can lift out and just start lifting. So OIDC login, i.e. Google. I don't know who else is doing OIDC right now. It's predominantly Google, although there are others. I think Facebook maybe switched to OIDC, but I can say for sure Auth0, Okta, all of those are OIDC to some degree. Okta's implementation is a little bit They took some leeway on the spec in a way that I don't agree with. But that's okay. So let's go back in. We're going to do the OIDC. We're going to lift OIDC. We're going to lift OAuth 2. And then I'll think on it some more. And I might have to take a break for getting a sandwich and going for a walk. Okay. All right, OIDC. App dot. Okay, so all of these have been lifted, right? And then, oh, bother. Yeah, okay, so that's, yeah. Yeah, so these have been lifted. Except, did we lift logout? Bless me. Okay, looks like we have lifted logout, so let me just go ahead. Since we have lifted it, let me go ahead and move that here. So logout, delete session cookie. So we're going to do a little delete there. And then with our logout, we need to provide some sort of function. Let me see, logout rec. Stop logout. Is this not our logout function right here? Logout routes, right? Okay, this is it. So, I might want to move that one. So wait, what were we going to do with this one then? Oh, that's to be able to remove session from the database. That's what that was for. Rec. So db.sessions.delete rec.authn. I don't remember how we were doing it. Let me check how we're doing it over here. Logout. Auth logout. Session model revoked at authn jws.claims.jti. So we're revoking that session from the database. We probably need a better way to do this. Maybe we need a session object in there for a session ID. I don't know. Got to think on this one. Okay, because that needs a better example. Really does. Okay. I really do want to fix the credentials bit. Hey, good night, Elon. Oh, you are a real software engineer because it says so on your resume. Okay. Ah, I mistake. Being a software engineer, it's kind of like other things in popular politics. You can just identify. You don't need credentials. You don't need something that's evidence based. It's identity based. I get it now. Yeah, this whole time I was thinking that computer science, you know, was evidentiary based, things that are principles that can be discerned independently by various individuals just by observation and cause and effect. But now my mind is enlightened. Did you know that I identify as a PhD? And I also identify as the best software developer in the world. So I'm happy to have you here. You have taught me much. You have made my understanding more expansive and grander. So thank you, Elon. You have an excellent night. Okay. So what are we doing there? Okay. I was going to look for OIDC, wasn't I? Yes, I was. Right here. All right, let me go look for this one. All right, so the problem was, hmm, oh, oh bother! Now we're in real trouble because I need to return the routes for this. Ugh. All right, so this is going to mean a few things. One, we're going to have a new exports object because I'm going to have an exports. Okay. Let's see. All right. We're going to have to call authorize is what we're going to have to do. Module.exports.authorize. And we need to pass in all of these options, really, is what it is. Let's just call this ops and call this ops. And then say from that, we need to... Ooh, this could be problematic. Let's... I'm just going to call this stuff for now. You know, that's not going to make it to production. No way. That would never happen. Never. How could you even dream of such an accident occurring? Not on my watch. Okay. Let's see, can we return the verifier and stuff.verifier? All right. Oh, lifting is hard. Okay, so app is going to get passed in. So if ops.app, that's how we could settle that one. And we can return stuff. Hopefully we'll find a better name for stuff. All right, same thing, right? Google ID, yeah. Verify Google token, Google verifier ops, BioIDC. That's all good, right? Okay. By the way, feel free to ask questions. Node, Go, Rust. Those are the types of questions I entertain, as well as other things, but those are ones that I feel that I can give good guidance on without going on some angry tirade. Well, yeah, Node, but certainly with Go and Rust. Let's see. Well, Ryan, you're also not a software engineer. So, but yeah. What is it about Vue that you don't like? I don't know if you really don't like Vue. I think you're just trolling me. I don't think you used Vue. But I liked Vue back in the Vue 1 days, except that, as always happens, whenever there's a good solution, we have to ignore it to some degree so that we can make sure that our solution does not build upon the completeness of our predecessors. And Vue originally did not have, so Angular introduced a strict mode, and then Vue didn't have that, and that was one of the reasons it had performance issues in V1, was the way that it had to stringify and eval stuff, was because the strict mode in Angular was that it introduced what most people I think called VM. Maybe it stood for view model, I don't know, but it was the state object. So it was using with instead. And then, so you either had to use unsafe code or you had to precompile because it had to know what objects were being inserted into the template. Whereas if you if you explicitly name whatever your state object is, then you don't have to deal with that. That was the one thing about Vue 1 that I didn't like. But other than that, I thought it was awesome. And if I could have figured out how to introduce that state object into Vue 1, I probably would have picked it up and been using it for more projects, because that was the one thing that bugged me was, this is an obvious design flaw that we already kind of knew was bad and we already fixed. Okay. Let's see. So what was the other thing I need? So I need this authorize, and authorize should return this. I don't even know if that's correct. So I think I could just lift this thing out entirely. I don't think that I have to worry about it that much because it's not going to be used anywhere else, right? So let me just say we're going to lift this out in its entirety, which I would prefer to have. I don't know why this is called authorize. That doesn't quite make sense. Let's call it create, maybe. We're just going to call it create, and then we're going to do this little ditty. And this is an internal implementation detail. This should not affect anybody upstream. So I'm going to call .create on this, and that's going to give us back our stuff. Let's call it Googoth. And then we can get that app stuff on there. So where was app for this? Oh, I guess I already kind of did something with that. Whatever. Okay, so we wanted to return, I guess this is good routes, maybe? So I don't think we want to return that right there. OIDC. Oh, we want to put this in A3K OIDC routes is what we want to return. So this whole bit needs to be part of that, which is a little bit tricksy. Because how do we identify this other than by its true name? So I think this one's a little bit weird. We'll have to figure this out as we go. But here, what's happening is routes is going to get I guess this needs to be combined into one route. Verifier and then by OIDC. So I guess we can do that because we're going to be passing our verify OIDC in here. So maybe this is what comes out of routes. I think it is. Not there. It's not as clean as I like it. Okay, so we need to wrap the verifier function essentially. We can go do that. So we're going to get rid of this one, the BioIDC function. That is included, but it is also subsumed. And then we're going to have, let's see, A3K dot OIDC routes is equal to, routes is equal to routes. And then what? So let me just copy this one again, of course, for OIDC routes, just so that it doesn't give me those complaints. We know, hey, it's supposed to be here. Oh, wait. So this one needs to have, for example, accounts.google.com. Yeah, it needs to have some of that stuff in there. So we'll figure that out as we go. Okay, so what is it complaining about? Why is it upset? All right, let's do it this way then. Let's say we're going to put that in there. And then we need to have this handler. And we're just going to put a function here for now, just to appease it. Oops. And then we're going to replace that right here. So maybe do... Sorry, I'm thinking. That's why I'm slowing down and just thinking, how do I need to move this around? So I'll move this into here. Okay, what is it upset about? There's a syntax error somewhere. I don't have something's not closing where it should. Doesn't seem to be the case. All right, let me read more carefully whatever it was complaining. Okay, now it says 919 unexpected token common, comma. So let's see, 919. Is that going to be the end of the file? 919. Oh, okay, there. Yeah, no big deal. Okay, so let's go back. We need to go in here. And then what we need to hand back then is really this verify Google token, but it needs to have this by OIDC route baked in. And that makes me a little uncomfortable because now I'm going to have to do some wrapping. What's up, Lehigh? How you doing? Welcome to the Discord. Okay, so this by OIDC verify Google token by OIDC. Okay, so we need to do this. Return new, or what do we do? Return promise.resolve. Let's see, what are we doing? No, verify OIDC token. Crapola. So this one, okay, let's verifier equals, and then we're going to have our return function. Again, I'm going to start assuming that we're not going to be using async router just so that we can cut that dependency, because I don't think this auth library should need it, because there's only a few places where we got to return routes like this. So we're just going to use promise.resolve and then .catch like that, because that's essentially what @root's async router does, is just allows you to have async functions by essentially creating that wrapper. So it's convenient. It's not necessary. Okay, so recres next. So we need to do verifier, rec res, and then next. So we should be able to do await. And then the problem here is that we then also need to call the catch to next on this one as well. So this is why I didn't want to do this wrapping. It's kind of ugly. Not in a nice way. Okay, we don't need that. We don't need this. So if error, throw error. And then we need to do await by OIDC rec res next. Okay. So now this is ugly, but it should work. Okay, what was this handler? Yeah. Okay, but by OIDC looks like doesn't need the next function, right? Yeah, it doesn't need the next function. Okay, so pass that in. So that's just at param now. And then we give it by OIDC. There we go. So now this one's happy. And then we should be able to do pretty much the same thing down here. Expected 3 arguments, we got 2 by OIDC. By OIDC. What? What are you complaining about? Let's give this a type. Actually, we should just be able to give this a return value, right? Just say at returns. Yeah, at returns. And then say it returns an express handler. And now this should, sure. Actually, I don't know. Does this need to be async for any reason? I don't think it actually does. Right, so we don't need the async there. So that's good. Okay, so now we're okay again, I think. Okay, but it thinks... Oh, I don't know how to tell this that this is a next. So this is okay. Expected 3 arguments, got 2. Fine. We'll throw next in there for whatever. Then what do I want to do to tell this thing not to worry? I think we just call it an error handler. Or maybe not an error handler. Maybe it's a next handler. I don't know what it's called. But we should be able to say at type and then throw this thing at it. Maybe call it next handler or maybe call it next. Let's see if either of these quench its sadness. I don't know. Maybe just throw a TS ignore in here. Call it good. All right, I'm willing to do it. There we go. Boom. Any framework that places logic, looping ifs, etc. into the template HTML is a no-go for me. That's what we have programming languages for. That's why I like JSX. So read that sentence to yourself out loud. I just... It's so... You've left me speechless. Okay. Again, are you trolling me? I don't know. Maybe you're just trolling me. I think you meant that. That's the... Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, this is really nasty looking. But it solves my problem. Oh, that's such an ugly pattern. Oh, that's ugly. Please excuse the ugly. But I needed both handlers to execute as one. You know what I need that I haven't used in a while? There we go. I might need to put this as basically a chain. So I may need, yeah, I think I'm going to pull this out and we're just going to have this as chain verifier and by OIDC. And then we're going to have this function chain, which is going to take, MW1 and MW2. And then we're just going to do MW1 and MW2. Whoops. MW1, MW2. And then there we go. I think this can work. Oh, and then I need to add the @returns here. Yeah, I'll do this. Call this MW2. So middleware 1 and middleware 2 is what I'm doing this for. All right. So now that's better. And then we put the chain off to the side. I probably need this. I'm probably going to need this in other places too, but I'll wait to pull it out until I know that I need it. But there we go. Now I can lift this out fairly fearlessly. And I don't think there's any other logic that's encapsulated in here. So I'm going to count that for the win. Okay, so then if I go back up to the README, what is this going to look like? So OIDC login. Yeah, so I may actually need to do this in a different way. Because this is going to look really ugly. And I do kind of want to avoid that if I can. But this is mostly going to be a get, I think. So this would be OIDC and then accounts.google.com. And then OIDC routes. Yeah, see, this just, it really starts to look ugly. So I don't know what the right solution is, but I don't think this is quite it. There's a lot of reduplication. So let me go back in here again and just kind of take a look. Okay, so this actually was a post, not a get. Let me go ahead and adjust that. So this is a post to that. Well, but you, Ryan, I don't even know how to have this discussion because I don't even know what analogy to come up with, but you said opposite things. And every part of what you said there, any framework that places the logic, looping, ifs, etc., into the template HTML is a no-go for me. That's why what we have programming languages for. That's why I like JSX. So there's what every single part of that is absurd. I mean, that's like saying I don't like Nesquik. Any drink additive that puts the sugar in the drink is a no-go for me. That's why I like True Moo chocolate milk. You know, it's I don't. I mean, the nice thing about Vue is that you don't have all of the looping and the ifs, etc., in the templates. The templates are clean. That's that's one of the benefits of Vue. Now, there's some that are even better in this regard, such as Squirrel. But that's the benefit of it is that it is a logicless template. Well, Vue's not quite logicless, which is, but it's close. I mean, you're throwing the bathwater out with the baby. Okay, what was it? Oh, these are Goog routes. Goog routes. All right, Goog routes. Again, something here just isn't quite right, and I'm not sure how to qualify it. But this just feels wrong. It just feels a little too icky. Or maybe not. Maybe it's not that bad. I don't know. I what the way for me to know what this should be would actually be to have multiple OIDC modules. But I think hmm, because we could just have let me just put this out here. This is kind of a similar problem to what we have with the magic link. So we could lift it partially and say we lift it to here. And then say, oh, it's a matter of perhaps a query parameter as to what else we do. Or we could say, I don't know, maybe we could say like this. Issuer. So we could have maybe something like that works. I'm not sure what the right way to lift this is, but we'll go with that for now. We don't know the right way, but we know some of the wrong ways. What? Oh, this isn't really a type of handler. OIDC routes. What is this complaining about? So this isn't returning a handler anymore. That's the problem. Okay, let me go back into here and say, is this returning a handler? This is not returning a handler. Let me go back to here. So this one is returning a group of handlers. What? Goog routes should be returning a handler. Let me go back here. Goog routes. So we call create, and create should verify token. What is this? What is this returning to us? And that, so verify Google token should be returning a handler, right? Google token. Verify Google token. Returns a handler. So this returns a handler, right? I don't know how that's not clear. So I don't know. Let me go back to this. Is it still complaining? It's still complaining. Oh. No, because routes. Oh, I get what it's doing. Sorry. I see what the problem is now. Okay, I'm going to go back and remove some of that duplicate type information. Because we don't, well, might as well. Because since this is typed, this doesn't need to be typed. This @returns doesn't need to be typed because this @returns is typed. And at the bottom, that's what we're returning. But also that kind of means that what we could do is just get rid of all of this and then just put that as what we're returning at the bottom too. But Ryan, you're saying v-if is a problem. That's not, so that would still be considered a logicless template. And how in the world do you create, you cannot create a template that doesn't respond to the data, right? Because how would you represent an empty list? You know, you have to have some method by which the element is either created or not created, right? You know, the fact that you pass data in, you know, so I don't get what you're saying. Because if you look at React, you're intermixing the programming language and the template all together. You've created literally a new programming language. So you're saying that in order to avoid having the minimum necessary complexity, that instead we should explode into having an entirely separate language. That blows my mind. Let's see. Well, I need to look at something. Okay. Okay. All right, going back here. I am definitely in need of some nourishment. Okay, so I've got this fixed. I feel good about it. This is in the right place. I'm getting out of this file. I'm going back over here. So I don't know why I have an if app there. That doesn't quite make sense. Because I think what this would be is we would just want to be setting ops.by OIDC equals true, I think. By O. And then in the other place where we were doing that, we would do this. So let me go. All right, by credentials, by OIDC is false. We also need to add by OAuth2 is false. So it's going to start out false. We're going to set it to true, and then let's get back to that app dot. Yeah, so challenge credentials. I think we want all of this. I think we want all the bys to be first and the fors to be last, if I remember correctly. So we're just going to do that there. I think that should do it. Okay, that does this. And then we need to do a similar thing for the OAuth 2. These are the ones that I feel the least secure about in terms of the design. Is it doing the right thing? Let's go ahead and go into this. We're going to go to lib, OAuth2, GitHub index. One thing I'm going to change is that this is going to be .create. And then we're going to lift this as well. So we're going to lift this post. And we are going to need the same thing as before. I'm going to need to return chain. And then we're going to need to chain this one and this. I guess I could have just brought those over both at the same time. I don't have the chain function here yet. That's okay. I'll bring it around. Okay. So we're going to call this .create. We're going to have let routes. Oh, I guess it's just going to be a3k.auth2 routes. And we're going to put in here github.com is one of them. And then in this case, we're going to do a3k.auth2 routes equals. And then we're going to do the ops.by OAuth2 is true. I guess we don't really need that though. Return a3k.auth2 routes. Oh, not OAuth3, OAuth2. There we go. The template is just syntax for desired view. What the letter L are you talking about? No, the logic does not. No. You are absolutely absurdly wrong. The logic is not happening in JavaScript. So ideally what should happen for a template language is 1,000 times simpler than React and 10 times simpler than Vue, Vue. The way that it is ideally going to work is that you get your data in the format that it needs to be to fit into the template like a glove. That's what it should be like. So you should just be able to apply the data to the template, and then the template should and go out. That is the ideal. Also, you have to consider whether you want to work with strings or whether you want to work with the DOM is the only thing I know of that isn't a string that is templated. But you're kind of using HTML in a way as a directive of where to attach event handlers, right? So VIF is more of an event handler than it is something that lives in text, right? Because HTML, you can't really template HTML unless you're doing a static site, because that's not how HTML works. HTML is parsed into the DOM, which is another programming language that you get access to through a JavaScript interface. So HTML is a special case compared to a true text format. But so you're basically, you're giving it you're saying when this event happens, that this object becomes truthy, then activate this DOM node. But yeah, creating separate programming languages, I don't know. I mean, that's, but again, I don't know. I don't even want to go to it. It's one of those things that is sickening. And I'm hungry. I think there's a reason that React has become so popular, and that it's irrational, illogical, and not designed for programmers. Okay, so here, I just want to throw an if around this. And then let's hoist this up. Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm AJ O'Neill. I desperately need to take a food break soon. We're going on almost 3 hours now, and I said almost an hour ago that I needed to step away from this and kind of let it settle what I'm working on. So for those of you that have joined in recently, the thing that I'm working on is this authentication library. It's currently called Auth 3000. That was the tentative name while I've been working on it and kind of figuring out what the right API should be. And what we're actually going to call it is going to be libauth.js. So I've already got a placeholder on npm for libauth. And this is meant to be similar to, it's not meant to be like Passport.js, but it's meant to fulfill a similar role. It's if you want to use Passport.js, there's no way in the world I'd be convincing you to use this. It'd be if you really, really just don't like things like Passport.js is where this would be something that would hopefully be ideal. And the idea is to reduce the amount of abstraction so that it's much more simpler what you're doing with the authentication process. Also giving you a little bit more flexibility. So instead of having to worry about the frameworky bits, you're predominantly just working with normal everyday Express, and not having to worry about the like I said, the frameworky bits, that your knowledge and your context is more around the authentication and Express and less around some niche framework. That's the goal anyway. And that what's being abstracted away is just some of the handshakes, but you still get access to, say, rec.headers and stuff like that you might need if you need to do something, if you need that flexibility. So that what I'm doing is right now, I went a bridge too far, and it made this a little bit more obscure than I want it to be, where it looks kind of magical. You just call session middleware.router, and then that puts everything under API auth, and then yay, win. But the problem is that then you have to go look at the documentation, you have to double check on things. So instead I'm inverting the control so that the routing is being lifted up to where you're defining the configuration that pretty much goes with that routing. And then I also am trying to figure out, I haven't quite figured this out yet, because there's this balance of boilerplate versus simplicity. And I'm trying to get it to the point where you will be able to, if you need to call res.json and add something special as part of your authentication process, or receive something special as part of your authentication process, that this doesn't get in the way. And I don't quite know what that balance is, but that's what I've been working on the last few hours, is just going through what's here, which has been, I don't know if battle tested is the right word, but it hasn't gone Google scale or anything. But we've been using it in a few different projects, Ryan and I, and maybe a few other people, and it's gotten to the point where it's pretty much there. It's just I want to add some finishing touches to it. Oh, it's just, here's the thing, Ryan. Compiling all the React hate isn't worth it. Yeah, Ryan asks, is Josh going to compile all the React hate into one video? It's just not worth it. It's just, it's one of those things where all press is good press. It doesn't, I give it, I empower it way too much, when really we should be, I guess the reason is that I don't have the good, sensible solution to show you, because I haven't taken the time to build it, and no one else has either. But what I want to show is how nice it is now that the DOM APIs have been updated, that we can write really simple JavaScript that's easy to read, that's easy to reason about, easy to put into different files. We really just have a win-win-win situation that we didn't have before. And that's what I want to be able to show. And there's still a few things that I need to figure out in order to demonstrate that, but that's really what I want to be showing. I don't want to have to talk about how stupid and retarded React is, because I just want to be able to show you, okay, here's simple and works well instead. Okay. So we got this exchange. Where was I going to put this one? Oh, right. We're going to put this with all the posts. So we're going to put that right below the OIDC routes. See, this is something where I'm not sure I'm ready to firm this up for the V1 API, because this still feels a little bit wrong to me. So what I'm leaving in place is basically, this is the legacy bits. If development cookie defaults. What do I need this for? What do I need this for? I gotta think, this needs to go somewhere else. It needs to go where these cookies are actually being handled, I think. I'm gonna get back on track in a second here. Not quite yet. All right, cookie defaults. Okay, so this right here, I think this needs to go in the init function. Could be wrong. Oh, yeah, this is also interesting. Yeah, the body parser. We have to lift that up as well. Oh, okay. So then we're going to have to lift out the cookie parser too. But the cookie parser, let's see. Okay, I don't have to worry too much about that, right? Cookie defaults. Where is cookie defaults then? Oh, interesting. Yeah, I am gonna have to lift out some of this for the cookie bits. I wasn't thinking about that, but I got to lift that out too, and that's kind of annoying because that's just yeah. And then there's a little bit of this I need to lift out. I think that's going to be okay. So where are these cookie defaults used? Okay. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Let's see if I can wrap this up in about 10 minutes here because I really need to get something to eat. Okay, what was I going to do? OIDC routes. Let me go check that out real quick. Okay, here we go. And then I need this similar thing for Auth 2 routes. And then I might be able to remove some of this boilerplate TypeScript nonsense later. For example, I think that it's possible. I don't remember exactly how you do it, but I think you can do something like record, and then you can do, I think, string. And then a handler type, and then if I'm not mistaken, that might be how you do it. Oh, like this? Yeah, there we go. So that cleans that up. Yeah. So now notice we're not getting any. Oh wait, no, we are. Why is it complaining? Create router. Maybe I'd need to update the router. Let me go take a look if I undo all of this. And then I go look at the challenge routes again. Does it still complain about this one line? No, it doesn't. Interesting. Okay. Because there's something I can do that's similar to this where I can just say, hey, this whole object is just nothing but express handlers. So I want to try that out. Let me just do this though. I'm going to put a to do here for that. Because I do want to clean this up at some point, but just while I'm working through it, I'm going to leave it there. Okay. So I lifted OIDC. I was in the process of lifting OAuth 2. And I don't think I actually need to have that there. And I don't think that I actually need to have this here. Um, Yeah, okay. So let me get back to the README. go back to so we're going to OIDC routes. I need to look at the OAuth 2 routes. That's what I need to look at here. So we're going to have something similar for OAuth 2 now. Except instead of google.com, it's going to be github.com. Yeah. So categorically, I think I got this one wrong. And what I mean by that is it's a category error of categories. So oftentimes when we're programming, we like to think, what is the superficial category of this thing? So for example, the best example is array methods. So rather than thinking about the vertical category of how is it that I need to use this in order to solve a problem, we think in this horizontal category of what are all the different possible similar solutions. And so here I've grouped this by OAuth 2 because indeed GitHub is an OAuth 2, and in theory, if OIDC worked as promised, you wouldn't need anything. You wouldn't need any configuration at all. Things would just work. Well, I guess you'd still need a client ID somehow, but you could just categorically define the ID of the website, for example. And that's one of the things that I want to get to eventually, is a stricter, more narrow scope of OIDC that is complete. And doesn't have so many loose ends and vagaries, because OAuth 2 is incredibly vague around its implementation, which is why every single OAuth 2 has a different, every single site that implements OAuth 2 has to have its own module, because there's so many vagaries in OAuth 2, you cannot create a generic OAuth 2 module. OIDC is almost clear enough that you can create a generic OIDC module, but there's still occasional bits and pieces of this and that. Anyway, that's not the point. The point that I was trying to get to is really this really still boils down to there's a Google middleware and there is a GitHub middleware. And it would be really, really nice if we could do... wait, did I have this documentation correct? Oh, it's either or. Got it. Okay, yeah, so I should just update the documentation here. So it'd be really, really nice if we could get to a point where these things could be well defined, but as it stands, they're really not. So there is no such thing as an OAuth 2 middleware, and there's kind of sort of such thing as an OIDC middleware, but really this is just a github.com middleware, and it happens to implement one of the many possible implementations given the vagaries of the OAuth 2 specification, or really the OAuth 2 framework for specifications. And then OIDC is at least a specification. Unfortunately, it has some vagaries in it as well. And so really, I'm trying to group OIDC in a subgroup of Google, but the reality of the situation is that it is still a GitHub login and a Google login, because there is no such thing as OAuth 2 in terms of code, because it is a framework for specifications, not actually a specific specification. And then OIDC still allows for too many vagaries that cannot be implemented automatically. So I think that's my error with these two. But the thing is, I don't want to necessarily have I don't want to have 600 different login modules, but the reality of the situation is that's what it has to be, because that is the way the world is. We would like the world to be in a place where we could define a specification like OIDC and say, these fit together, but that's not the way the world is. It just isn't. And so that's where I can see just from the way the code feels more complicated that I've made an implementation error. So I think I'm going to come back around to this and try to clean this up at some point where this is, yeah, but I wanted it to all be self-contained, and maybe I still will. I don't know. I could have, it could be similar to the Google has the standard library and the X standard library. I just don't want external branding to have to be part of code. I don't want branded proprietary bits to have to be part of code. But in this particular case, I think that's what it has to be, because let me take a look again at the OIDC accounts.google. How much of this is explicit? So we can, let's see, by virtue of knowing what the strategy is. So let's go back here. Well, let's go all the way back here. Sorry. So let's just look at the Google one. The GitHub one, there's no hope. That has to be a GitHub module. But let's just take a look at this one. So let's say that if we were going to pass in the key here, because that's what it is. So let's say let key equals loot. We're gonna do the same thing here. And then we're gonna look for the key. And then could we put in here the strategy name or the issuer name? Let's just try that, issuer name. Because ideally, we should be able to just loop over the OIDC options and not have to have anything specific about them. So I just want to see, is that realistic? What is it complaining about? Issuer, oh, whoops. I don't know what it was complaining about before. Oh, there we go. So issuer name. I don't know why this is complaining. I go back into here and say, let's say that we have issuer name. And so we were able to create a template out of this, and it would be issuer name, right? OIDC middleware ops. Let's go back into there. So we could have in here, we could have string. Just throw this in here real quick. Issuer name. And really it's issuer URL, but I called it issuer name. I can fix that later. Okay. So let's see if we could we really get rid of this? And I don't think that we could. Here's one of the reasons why right here. So we have email verified. That is something that shouldn't be specific to Google, but I think that it is. So to do, is this specific to Google? We can take a look. Let's take a look at the OIDC standard claims. OIDC standard claims. And then do we have email verified? Okay, email verified is not specific to Google. That doesn't mean that everybody else that is supposed to implement it will. But this right here, AZP should not be, yeah, I think this part is kind of specific to the way that Google interprets it. Mm. Let's see. Party which tokens issued must be blah 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 blah. Yeah, see that. I think this is kind of specific to Google's implementation. And could we invert the control on this? Maybe, but it'd probably make it more complicated and more difficult to discern. But let's just keep going with it for a little bit. This does look pretty standard. All things considered. So I would say maybe this isn't terribly Google specific. Maybe the things, this part is specific to Google because Google allows you to create lots of different applications, and then the AZP references the client ID. In terms of verifying an email, it really doesn't matter. It's just a matter of whether or not the email is verified with your application, allowed to your application. Because if you're just checking email, if you don't check the authorized party, which is going to be the client ID, so say somebody takes a token from a different service and then gives it to you, this could be a vulnerability in the perspective that someone else's service is vulnerable, so they got a token, so that, that's a real consideration. But if somebody has a token with a valid email, and they were able to log into a Google service and get the valid email, then the email is still validated by Google. But I think this is Google specific logic. I don't think that in general you would expect the AZP to be the client ID necessarily, because their client ID looks like an email address. So it does at least include the domain component. I think that that's great. Let's see. Oh, I needed to go back here to OAuth 2. And let me go back down here to the bottom, and we're just going to paste in this chain function. And in the future, I may consolidate that into a single place, but for right now, I don't really want to worry about it. Okay, so those are all good. All right. So what is this complaining about? Element has implicitly any Google handler. How is that so? Because I specified it here exactly already. So maybe I could do it like this instead. And that seems kind of weird, but let's go ahead and go with it. Huh, interesting. That is indeed interesting. I don't know why it's griping at me about it. I'm just going to tell it, ignore it. Well, I don't really want to tell it to ignore it. What I want to do is tell it this is a handler. I think that's what I want to do. Okay, so let's go back to here and say, hey, this is of a type handler. It doesn't care. So maybe I just need to do, at ts ignore. Oopsies. Okay. So let's get that out of the way. Now I've lifted GitHub, I've lifted OAuth 2. I think I still need to lift refresh, if I remember correctly here. Let's lift refresh. And then I got to refresh that cookie, or lift the cookie stuff. But that I'm going to have to do after I get a meal in me. That's going to take yet more brain work. Okay. Refresh routes. Okay. Oh, it looks like I'm ready to lift that, right? So app dot. Yeah, looks like that's good. Okay. All right, so we're going to put this in here. We are going to include refresh. Okay, so I think that I can do this both with refresh and exchange, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Exchange. There we go. And so then I can completely eliminate this bit here. Do we also have the logout done? I think we also have the logout done. So this one, all right, well, I'm losing my energy. I think I'm at a good pause point. I can get rid of this now. I have to go figure out how to... Should this just be the get user? Okay. Yeah, I think what I need to do is I need to have a get user function where you get all of this information about the login. And then the credential bit needs to have its own check credentials function. So we need to have here async function, rec, and then we need to have the return. Where were we doing here? Say no, let's see. Rec.body.password. I'm just really not sure what this should be. Yeah, I think it's going to need to look something like this though. And that you throw an error. throw an error if it doesn't work, because everything else, the challenge process is handled for you. And I think if you don't supply anything, no, you got to supply something, because there's got to be some way to say, you know, find user by password. Maybe this could just be something like this then. I don't know, something like that. I think this is what this needs to get to. So this is just a to-do for me though. Let's do checkout-b, create the branch libauth. I'm just going to whip it all. So let's just whip that. Invert route control. Okay. And let me go ahead and open up a pull request for this. Actually, I think I've got the repos open over here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I'm going to go sit on it. Thanks everybody for joining in. I've appreciated the conversation. I'm going to take one more look at this, see if there's anything else that I want to do before I go for a little bit. And then I'll come back to finish up. I think what we have left, let me go ahead and mark this here, is so invert app dot to surface as part of boilerplate. Then we're going to lift cookie logic to own route. Oops. And then move credential checking to own logic. Provide a way to pass user, because we don't want to make it have to do two database calls if it could just do one, which is, this is where that particular strategy is a little bit weird, because you may not actually need to do a database call to check is the password correct and then do another call to get the user. You'd kind of want to do those in one. But the way that I want the session logic to work is more streamlined. So we'll see. And maybe the way that it ought to work, maybe the way that it ought to work is just a follow-up middleware. That would make a lot of sense. If we actually, let me just kind of prototype this out real quick. But what if, all of these fall through? So let's say every route that we have here so far falls through. And then towards the very end, we just have an app.use API auth. And then this is where say we're doing this. This is where you do whatever you want. So at this point, if it gets here, then you know there's been some sort of valid authentication. No matter what it is. And then this is the point where you say, okay, libauth dot grant cookie user res, right? Grant token user, and then I'll say await, and then res.json. Let tokens equals maybe, and then tokens. Maybe this is the way to do it. So rather than trying to specify that login stuff up ahead, maybe we say, hey, all of this right here is just about, it's all about the challenge response. And then at the end of it all, the last thing that you do is say, okay, no matter what method worked with the challenge response type of stuff, here's what I'm going to do as a result. And then that would make this make a lot of sense too. So then we could just have, you know, function here, a function here. And so this is how I'm going to handle the refresh, is I'm going to call await libauth dot grant cookie res. I think this might be the solution. Yeah. This is very interesting. Very interesting idea. I'm going to have to think on this, but I kind of like this a lot. I need to discuss this idea with Ryan. I need to get him on to discuss it with him to see what his thoughts are. Also, would love to know what your thoughts are. This is something I would like to be usable by a fairly low level of developer. But again, it is intended to have some amount of flexibility in it. So I'm not trying to create the here's the 3-line solution. I would like to get it. I would like to minimize. I want to find the minimum level of complexity, but I don't want to introduce complexity through abstraction where it's not, you know, not necessary. So. So let me see. All right. Anyway. Okay, one last look at this, and then I'm going to say my goodbyes. I'm very, very hungry. Very, very aware of my hunger. So all this stuff, yeah, that's where it belongs. That's where it belongs. That's where it belongs. That's where it belongs. That is in the right place. This one, I think we have that in the right place. And then this bit right here, this has got some complexity to it that I need to think through. And I might not need to think through it as much as I think I do. Because this may all be really just libauth stuff. Because maybe this whole bit about all claims is somewhat misguided. Because maybe we just invert the control on that and hand that back to the user to let them do whatever it is that they wanted to do. And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think this is it. I think we're going to get to the 1.0. At least I think we're going to solve all solvable problems with this by the end of the day, in the next session. The one thing where I'm not sure what the right solution is still is, let's see, the plugin architecture around, because I don't like to have mutual dependencies. So I think that something that wants to create a plugin, so say you want to create the Google login plugin for libauth, it's reasonable that you're going to use libauth as a dependency. And then it's reasonable as a user that you are going to require the plugin. So I think we're going to separate Google and GitHub out into libauth Google and libauth GitHub. I think that's what we're going to do. I think I'm going to make that, what do we call that? It's the opposite of the mono repo. Git submodules. I think we'll make those Git submodules so that they can stay in the right place. They can be in the strategies folder or something, but I won't require them directly. You'll have to install them explicitly. Okay, that was the eureka moment. That was the gold. So for those of you that were here for it, I don't know if you understood what that moment was exactly, but you were here for history. And it's basically that the function that I couldn't name, that I couldn't figure out, what is this called? What does this do? It seems that function is the function that should come next. So libauth is going to be doing very light. The thing is, libauth is not going to try to handle everything. It's going to use the bits of Express that are already there to say you can have multiple middleware, and there's going to be one middleware that's the libauth middleware that handles libauthy stuff, and then there's going to be your handler that is going to have just 2 or 3 lines of boilerplate so that it sets the cookies. It does something to get the user. It sets the cookies, etc. We're not going to embed your custom logic. We're not going to pull your custom logic down into libauth. That doesn't make sense. We're going to let libauth's logic live in libauth, free from your logic, and you're going to add your logic. This is a great compositional pattern. This right here, this is going to work well. This is, I think. Okay, so again, thanks for joining in. Like, sub, follow if you want to. I will catch you on the flip side, all right? So with that all said, let's see if there's any good opportunities that we missed for using some sound effects, and maybe I'll use one now.
Now these points of data make a beautiful line, and we're out of beta, we're releasing on time.
I don't know if we're quite out of beta, but these points of data are making a beautiful line. All right, that all said, adios.